The best job I ever had was sweeping up hair in a barbershop for $25 a week. I loved that job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was great. And I suppose after that experience, I've always wanted people to feel the way I felt every time I walked through the doors of that barbershop. This would lead me to a career in human resources, specifically talent acquisition. For the uninitiated, talent acquisition is a pretty fancy phrase for recruiting. I've recruited for large, medium-sized, and small companies, and I've sold recruiting services to the same. I've sat in on numerous interview and interview debrief sessions, and of all those experiences, one thing has come home crystal clear. The way in which we interview people is broken. You can see the carnage everywhere, most notably in employee and hiring manager dissatisfaction. A 2019 Gartner study showed us that employee satisfaction sits at just 13%. Let's say that a little differently. 87% of employees are dissatisfied with their work experience. This dissatisfaction is because companies are hiring people at all levels within the organization without actually assessing if the person can do the job. They're hiring people without understanding if they can do a specific task that they might encounter in the role. Think about that for a second. Can you imagine a football player making the team without a tryout? Better yet, can you imagine a soldier going into battle and never being qualified on their weapon? As someone who went to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, I can attest that those skills are evaluated thoroughly. Yet in business, employers hire people every single day without understanding if they can accomplish the tasks that they need done. This is like crazy. And because of this, companies are stuck in a cyclical pattern that leads to unhappiness and poor performance. The lack of properly evaluating talent costs businesses billions each year. But more importantly, millions of people spend most of their days being unfulfilled and miserable. I suspect some of those people may be watching today. Being in the wrong job hurts the person. It hurts their spouse, their children, and their outlook. There's nothing worse in life, really, than waking up every day, going to a place or Zoom where you know you're going to be unhappy instead of spending that time with the people you love. The psychological toll can really be immense. When I was 16, I got my first job at Edwards Barbershop. I was the barbershop boy. Yes, and that is the actual job title. Barbershop boy. And yes, I once had hair. I know it's hard to believe, but this bald head right here had one of the best box fades of the 1990s. If you don't know what I'm talking about, box fade, all this, later on, just Google Kid and Play. If you were between the ages of 14 and 18 at Edwards Barbershop, the barbershop boy position was the job you wanted. The job entailed going to the barbershop after they closed to sweep up their hair, but it was much more than that. You ran errands for the barber, and depending on the barbers and how much they had imbibed, you had to keep the change. Not to mention you were exposed to some of the, and I mean the best trash talk in town. Saturday was payday, and there were 5 chairs in the barbershop. Each chair paid $5, so that meant I got $25 every single week. With that, I put gas in my car, went to the movies. Hey, I was going fancy. I even got some popcorn. That was more than enough for me, and I really enjoyed that entire experience. But I often think back and wonder, why did they pick me? What was it about me that made them think that I would show up every day, be on time, and do what was asked of me? Life is funny with its twists and turns, because today I'm compensated to find candidates who will show up every day, be on time, and do what's asked of them. About a year ago, I was dealing with a situation that was really puzzling. We'd hired a candidate, and I mean, they were fantastic on paper. Resume looked fantastic. They came from a great school. In the interview, man, they blew that away. But the hiring manager had come into my office and let me know that they just weren't cutting it in the job, and that we were going to have to begin to look for his replacement. As I sat back in my chair, my mind went back to Edward's barbershop, as it always does. And I wondered again, why did they hire me? What was it about me that made them think that I could do the job? See, I'd been going to that barbershop my whole life. I had my first haircut there, and they literally saw me grow up. They heard about my grades at school, and when there was a time for an opening, they had all the information they needed to make me an offer. And that's when it hit me. What if we hired people the way I was hired at the barbershop? You see, I didn't know it at the time, but going to the barbershop week after week had given me the ability to demonstrate what I could do. They didn't need to ask me hypothetical questions about things that may or may not happen. They observed me and my behavior. One way in which the interview is broken is that the interview depends too much on talk and not enough on show. I hear people all the time saying, I want to hire a rock star, Andrew. Well, if you want to hire a rock star, you need to see them perform, right? Berry Gordy just didn't sign 5 brothers from Gary, Indiana to Motown immediately, sight unseen. He made them audition first. Instead of looking at interviewing as some stale rote process, let's look at it like a live show, a concert. To hire the best, the interview as currently constituted will need to change so that candidates can shine. Candidates will need to show their experience, aptitude, and their approach to the role by being put in situations to perform. Instead of wondering how a candidate would react to a situation, you'll literally be able to see how they would react. Doing anything less is like hiring someone with blinders on. And what makes this approach work is its simplicity. Most of us use this approach in our everyday lives and don't even know it. In fact, I'm sure some of you might have even used this approach to find your husband, wife, or significant other. Follow me down memory lane. Let's go back about a month into that steamy romance of yours. Did you ever say, hey, let's take a weekend trip together? If you did, you knew this was a test. In that scheming mind of yours, you were thinking, if we can spend 3 hours in a car and an entire weekend together, this thing might actually work. Well, if you did that, then you were the hiring manager and your partner was the candidate. There's a misconception out there that hiring is some HR activity. In my view, hiring is a business activity. Just like you on that trip, hiring managers need to have skin in the game. Having a great business profile or resume does not a great employee make. Coming from a great school should not be the determining factor in one getting a job. Furthermore, coming from a great school does not inherently mean that you're better, smarter, or have the aptitude to do a specific task. The only thing that should determine if someone can do the job is, wait for it, their actual ability to do the job. The next way in which the interview is broken is in its lack of equity. Managers have a penchant to focus too much on what I call the I like them philosophy. Hiring managers fall in love with candidates with the same background, skills, sensibilities, and personality traits. Listen, I get it. I like me too. But the stakes are too big here for that kind of myopic view when it comes to hiring. Companies large and small are seeking to solve the problems of tomorrow or help other companies solve those problems. And to hire someone based on whether we like them or not is unscientific, it's unproven, and it's ineffective. Study after study after study has shown us that the I like them philosophy breeds homogeneous environments that hurts business growth and negatively affects company culture. When I was waiting for hours, and I mean hours, to cut the hair I used to have, it's fair to say that I didn't have a lot in common with my future bosses. For one, I didn't have facial hair. I still don't. But two, I wasn't married, and I didn't nearly have their life experiences. There were always newspapers around the barbershop, and I would always race to get the sports section, but I never could get it. But there'd be a business section there, so I'd pick that up and read it. You know, I'd later hear the owner of the barbershop, Mr. Edwards, go, "That boy even reads the business section?" He didn't know it at the time, and I never told him. But he valued someone who was different. He liked someone who had a different perspective on things. If you want to hire a rock star, you need to see them perform. 24 hours before the interview, send the candidate an email outlining a problem that you'd like for them to solve. Let them know that they'll have 10 minutes to present their solution, and that they'll be asked questions by the interview panel. Even give them time for an encore. Let them know that they'll be given a problem while they're there that they'll quickly have to decipher, present back to the team, and they'll be asked questions on that. The whole process should take about an hour or so. Simple, effective, and it would allow you to evaluate candidates equally and in many different aspects. Before I got the job at the barbershop, they'd always send me to the store to do something for them, get them a soda or some food. I always brought back what they needed with, I might add, the correct change. They were able to evaluate my ability to do the job and my trustworthiness. Now, am I saying that we need to hire people and wait months and years like I was hired at the barbershop? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that if we value talent the way we say we do, then we need to understand that their happiness is important to their well-being. And by doing so, we're making a commitment. And if we're making this commitment, we're going to be forced to do things differently, act differently, think differently. Whether you're looking to interview a potential spouse or an employee, putting that person in situations similar to the ones they'll be in if they got the job will reveal how they will perform. This is very different than asking hypothetical questions about things that may or may not happen. The interview doesn't have to stay broken. Turn your office into a barbershop and let the live show begin. Thank you.